2024 Town Hall. It's good to see you all, and before we get started, I wanted to ensure that we thank those colleagues who prepped this event so we could all be gathered here today. So help me in thanking those who put the event together. Also, a huge thank you to our president and provost for providing the space for this kind of conversational moment so needed at our institution and beyond. Indeed, we're privileged to gather here today in meaningful, productive, and diplomatic conversation. As we look to the next era of growth and maybe some more growing pains, our community has been invited to reflect on our own internal governance and recommend a framework for our institution by December 2024. As such, and as many of you know, the governance task force that our president convened is moving deliberately through 3 major phases. We're in phase 2. And we continue to extend invitations to our students and colleagues to engage with the task force in these conversations. So when you get an invitation, we'd love to meet with you and hear from you. We want to ensure that your input is part of a productive recommendation that reflects the best of our collective will on this campus. Thinking about governance, as you may know, there's a lot going on in the world. And while that's going on, sometimes connected to our lives and sometimes really connected to our lives and sometimes a little bit more distant, many of us choose to work and study in this state, in this city, and at this institution. And we do that versus choosing to do this somewhere else. In my short time here, I have learned why this is in the DNA of the institution. I know that we enjoy this camaraderie, the spirit of innovation, and an unyielding commitment to social justice, to student success, and most importantly, to each other. So as we begin today's event, and while the viability of cooperation, shared governance, and diplomacy are wavering all too much, right here at home and abroad, we gather here calmly and with the intellectual curiosity meritorious of a proud Scorpion to engage in difficult conversations without risk to our relationships, and to celebrate our collective well-being and our pride. So with that, I turn it over to our leadership, and thank you once again for making time in your schedules to be here today.
Well, thank you so much, Dean Gunn. We really appreciate your introductory comments. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Amber Lopez-Lassiter, the Chief of Staff and Strategy here at Nevada State. We really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to join us this afternoon. Our town halls serve as an opportunity to dialogue. They're highly valued by our campus community. Our executive team leading up to this takes time to review all of the questions that are submitted and all of the different dialogue and feedback. Even if your questions don't make it to the screen today, we've taken into consideration the topics and concerns you've sent, and in many cases have immediately begun to brainstorm related solutions and actions. And will our executive team members that are here today please stand up?
Please stand up.
I know. It's very Slim Shady. So the theme of today's event is futuring, and we are here to discuss the future of Nevada State University from people and policies to plans and pedagogy. Our president and provost are ready to field both pre-submitted and in-person questions. So individuals that have joined us via live stream today are encouraged to submit questions through the event at nevadastate.edu /TownHallQs, and that's QS, plural. If you're here in the room and you have a question, please raise your hand or head over to the microphone, and I will work throughout to ask the president and provost both the pre-submitted questions and also questions as they come forth from the audience or from the live stream. So, without further ado, before we hop into questions, we will end with closing remarks and a few calls to action from our Vice President of Advancement, Aaron Keller. So now we're going to hop into some questions. You guys ready over there?
Oh, yeah.
All right, so a quick reminder to continue to submit any questions that you have. Our first question is, all right, making sure everything's pairing up here. What steps is the university taking to address the challenges of equity and inclusivity in education, particularly in terms of access to resources, opportunities for underrepresented groups, and creating an inclusive campus culture?
Well, first of all, good afternoon, everyone. It's good to see you, and I hope you're doing well. I love this question because I think it captures or reflects the initial introductory framework that Dean Gunn presented. This idea that at the core of Nevada State's ethos is this belief that equity, access, and justice are intrinsic to how we organize our work and how we think about the ways in which we make decisions at the institution. So for me, I think this is a multi-layered one. One is there is work that's done, and I'll certainly defer to our provost in a moment to talk about things within that she may be hearing taking place in classrooms and professional development in those spaces. Writ large within the institution, I think first of all, my job is to be very deliberate in advocating and speaking to those issues externally, to our legislators, to our donors, to decision makers throughout the community to understand that these things are essential to Nevada State. And oftentimes that means conveying to them who we are and who we serve. When I tell them that nearly 80% of our students are students of color, when I tell them that nearly 50% of our students are first generation college students, and when I tell them the other 80 that nearly 80% of our graduates stay in state, and we are representative of just who the state of Nevada is and is becoming, that becomes important. When I talk about the numbers of our students, almost another 80% who receive some form of financial aid, and about 69% of them receive some form, usually a Pell Grant. That indicates that we have great divides in terms of economic mobility within our organization. So for me, my job, I think, is to paint that picture and to be deliberate about that. Within the organization, then, is to think about how we make decisions. Do we ensure that voices are being heard, those who are at the table and those who are not at the table? Are we looking at how we align resources? Are we thinking deliberately about the things that we say yes to, the things that we say no to, and how do we revisit those notions of that? The biggest one for us as an organization is often aligned around resources. How do we make sure that we're able to say our core function is the delivery of instruction and that we assign resources to that, and all the things that go around to support that are equally respected in terms of our budgeting process? Do we communicate thoughtfully and deliberately in those spaces? So for me, I think it is both a work of active hands, the work we do, but also an ethos. It's the thing that attracted me to this organization nearly 3 years ago, and it also is a thing that keeps me engaged when I talk about the story of Nevada State beyond this space. I'll end my comment on this response and certainly defer to Sarah in some things that she would like to speak to about this. And most recently doing this when we had the state ad hoc committee around the funding formula, where they're looking at the ways in which resources from the state will be designated for institutions, all 8 institutions within the state. And my intent when I went into this session was to actually tell them about our students and to center my comments around this idea that inherently there is privilege already baked into our funding formula. We have said that as a state, by a weighted credit hour methodology, we have privileged certain types of courses, certain types of students, certain types of experiences as being essential. What I'm offering is that are those weights the ones that are most necessary now for where Nevada is in this moment? Does it respond to the needs of the students that we serve now? And are we centering the student experience in those decisions and conversations? So my job, primarily in a lot of ways as the president, is to speak externally around these things and then make the connections within the institution. Dr. Frey.
Well, I'll add on, I think inherent in this question is something that we're working on in partnership with the Senate right now. I was really grateful I reached out to Molly Appel to talk about how we can, as a campus, provide resources for faculty on how to have conversations about world events, national events that may have complex intertwining issues where students have different identities that they're bringing to those conversations, and how we provide safe spaces in the classroom to have difficult conversations. How do we address things that may arise in our campus proactively so that students do feel like they're included in our campus, they feel comfortable in our campus spaces, and can also grapple with how do we talk about complex issues with many underlying factors without oversimplifying those types of difficult issues. We're talking about doing a series of events where we have some just places for faculty in our campus who have research expertise in these domains to share their expertise, places for faculty just to talk amongst themselves around the challenges they've faced in their classroom and their interactions with students and their personal identity, bringing that to the campus and how they feel navigating our atmosphere and what we can do to make our campus as inclusive as possible for our students, and providing safe spaces to grapple with these complex issues that come up and with world events. And coupled with that, we're also looking into some external trainers to bring in folks with expertise in these spaces to help provide us the tools and resources to make sure we continue to have a space where we can have difficult conversations, position ourselves as a campus to make sure that we're always going to be the institution we want to be and have that space where all of our members of our community feel included. So we're hoping to do this through a series of having faculty share their expertise, having safe spaces where faculty can come together to talk about things. And I realize safe space is not quite the right word for that. I'm going to use brave space instead there for faculty to have these conversations. And then also just some tools and training for what this looks like in the classroom, what this looks with our collegial interactions as a campus.
Great, thank you. So this next submitted question is for Provost Frey, and we are hopping to the issue of growth. Looking at Nevada State campus's master plan and reading the potential Nevada State has over the next 15 years, it makes me very excited, but at the same time concerned. With a university that's expected to grow so large, how can we ensure in the future that we remain a teaching university that places an emphasis on student success? How can we ensure that this institution won't become an institution solely focused on research like UNLV and UNR?
I think this is a great question, and I will say I do not share your concern on this one because I think there's so many factors that are pushing us to be the teaching university of the state, and I see almost no factors pushing us towards becoming a research university. For example, we have a state with only 24% higher education degree attainment. The research universities are built on two factors. The way you become an R1 research university is producing graduate degrees and research dollar expenditures. For a state that doesn't even have a hard fraction of bachelor's degrees, I don't see the need and pressure to create more advanced degrees. I think we have two institutions who are doing a great job in that space, and I don't see a lot of pressure there. If you look at our workforce development, we're still just trying to, as a state, create more jobs for college graduates, a little bit higher ed sector there. So I think we have way more opportunity, plenty of need to create more college degree recipients in our state. If you look at the pressure from our politicians, I'd say our teaching university is meeting a great niche in the state, and so I think there's a lot of support there for the mission that we have now, and we have a real clear identity as a mission as well, and so I don't think we're in danger of slipping into accidentally becoming a research institution. I can tell you, if we started today and said, we want to be an R1 research institution, none of us in the room will still be working here by the time that happens. It's a long, hard way to go. It's not something where we're going to accidentally slip into. I also think Nevada State has attracted people with our mission. And so the teaching university aspect of our campus, I think you have many, many defenders at all levels on this campus that are proud of the identity as a teaching university, realize the need for our region. And so I don't think we're going to accidentally slip into trying to become a research university, because I think our identity is exactly aligned with the needs of our state, the needs of our region, and I think we're well positioned to continue to meet that for decades to come.
Great, thank you. So President Pollard, this question is for you regarding the future. Can you elaborate on the next 5 years? What is the strategic plan for business development around Nevada State? I'm wondering if the city has plans for additional buildings for Nevada State or commerce.
So this is a really provocative question because I think there are two layers to it. One is that There are certainly a number of business and industry needs that are driving, I think, a visioning for what Southern Nevada is going to look like. Many of you may have read, even just in the paper last week with the Super Bowl here, there was a recruitment event where a group of about a dozen companies were courted and feted, I guess I should say, and encouraged to consider relocating to the Las Vegas greater area. And two things became very important in that conversation. One, outside of my control, obviously, are the things related to tax and tax abatements, which they have. But the two that are very interesting, they talked about talent to step into work, because all of them are not wanting to be Amazon fulfillment centers where you have educational attainment that is not the level that we provide here and seek to provide within our institution. And second is space. There is a concern around the absence of a tremendous amount of space to build out corporate headquarters and those types of things here, and how would one go about doing that? So I think there are a couple things that work tangentially with our future. We're coming toward the end of our current strategic plan, and in the coming year, starting this fall, we'll be working toward our new strategic plan. And a part of that is going to be this understanding deeply about what's happening around us. What are the economic indices that are driving the economy here? How do we prepare a workforce? But also, how do we value learning? And how do we think about what it means to be an inclusive environment and a space that is very unique than other places in the country? In fact, one of the things I often have said of late, the conversation that question poses looks different if you're in Massachusetts than when you're in Nevada. So as a result of that, we have to respond to the environment that we have now and the one that we're trying to beget, and spend time and resources that way. So I'm going to be challenging us in our next strategic plan is to do a series of steps in that process. One, doing a lot of environmental scanning to understand what exactly is happening locally and also within the state of Nevada. Having us think deeply about what are some actionable goals. I don't think a strategic plan will be 5 years now. Most things and most of the best thinking are saying that most strategic plans are now 3 years, and that's a direct result of COVID. When I think about Nevada State, we have some very strategic things we have to think about. One, enrollment management. How do we grow thoughtfully, and how do we make sure that we understand who we serve and how we want to serve them? How do we look at program development? That is going to be essential, building out programs that are needed, and also at the same time, higher education we are phenomenal at the arithmetic of addition and multiplication. We do not do well at the arithmetic of subtraction and division. And we're going to have to spend some time thinking about what it is we really want to do and how we want to do that and what things we're not going to do. And that's okay to ask those types of questions. Third, I think we're going to have to look at in our institutional maturity modeling that we've been talking a lot about, our processes and systems. We are now 20 years old, and the idea that we are going to be able to go and talk to someone about something is not going to be a viable situation. How do we think about the steps and systems that need to be in place that really will remain even when the people have changed? That's a very important thing. And then last but not least for me is resource development. We're going to have to think a lot about how we talk to our state about resources. We have a funding formula, a conversation that is taking place absent around the need for additional revenue. It is about reconfiguring an existing formula. That's not sustainable in my mind. So some of us are going to have to be making that case thoughtfully. Within our city, the city of Henderson has been a tremendous partner with us. And yet and still, as we continue to grow out this campus, we're going to have conversations around safety and egress. How do we build partnerships? Our students in the villages I was just talking with the other day was sharing their need for infrastructure, grocery store, access to transporting there. Those types of things are essential. So for me, I think the next strategic plan in the immediate future of the institution is going to be a pivotal one, because it's now moving beyond this scrappy institution that has worked tremendously hard on the backs of some phenomenal people. We are now going to be thinking about the systems that have to be in place to sustain it and the resources that we're going to have to generate in order to do that, and how we monetize the resources we do have to do some of that.
Great, thank you so much. Provost Frey, under the umbrella of Enrollment Management, are we going to start recruiting more outside of Vegas?
I will be able to have a definitive answer to that question tomorrow, because we're going to be kicking off our strategic enrollment management retreat tomorrow to start really talking about who we want to be as an institution, where do we want to find our enrollments, what do we want to look like 10 years from now, how do we want to plan for that growth as an institution. My answer is almost certainly yes. I think we now have this fantastic resource in our housing on campus, and I think we can really capitalize on the housing availability to make the Nevada State education available to students who might not have otherwise thought about coming here. I think as we're looking particularly at transfer students from some of our community college partners across the state, this is a great opportunity that we can now offer them housing. I don't know if any of you have seen the housing. It's gorgeous over there. These are fantastic places for our students to come live, learn. So I'd love to find ways to leverage that resource to help us look beyond Vegas. We already have some pockets where we're recruiting out of Vegas, but I think doing it more intentionally and thoughtfully on how we want to serve our state would be really important. I also think as we're bringing on our new graduate programs, we have one graduate program now and 2 more in the queue to launch, and we're finding a lot of attraction not just from across the state, but out of state as well. So I think as we're looking at the profile of Nevada State, I expect that to change in the next 5 to 10 years. But I want to do that collaboratively as a discussion with our campus around who do we serve, why, what does that look like?
Great. We look forward to more updates there. This next question you can arm wrestle for, and we hope you literally do that. Given the growing importance of environmental sustainability, how is the university planning to incorporate sustainable practices and environmental consciousness into its educational programs and campus operations?
Tell you what, I'll take educational programs, you take campus operations?
You're so thoughtful.
All right. On the educational program side, I think sustainability is a really important topic, and I think one thing I'd like to see in our future is reevaluating what our core curriculum looks like and how it embraces important topics such as sustainability. What should all Nevada State students come away knowing about sustainability after their education here on campus? And maybe some of that's through formal coursework, maybe some of that's through other educational opportunities that we have as a campus, because not all education occurs in the classroom. So I think really thinking intentionally about how do we want our students to be influenced by their experience here on this campus? How do we want to elevate the voices of the students who have a passion in this field and have them provide educational opportunities for their colleagues?
So I think operationally, I think 2 things I'll speak to. One is that our business and finance area, which really leads the operational parts of the institution, does a lot in this space already, challenging us around our use of waste, how we procure certain types of items, standards that we have in those regards. So I think as an institution, we've done made some good decisions. There are things, though, that we can continue to look at and how we manage ourselves as employees of the institution and students who attend. I do know, I'm blanking on the name of the program, that they've been our Sustainability Council has been piloting a series of programs around reducing trash consumption.
All in the hall.
What is it?
All in the hall.
All in the hall. I didn't say that. All in the hall. And we've been doing that in our School of Education, where we have taken baskets, waste receptacles out of individual offices, and we have placed them in major gathering and wayfinding areas, certain 15 feet or something away, so people can utilize those. That has the equal benefit of reducing our plastic bag consumption, as well as getting people up and moving, being much more conscious about what you throw away. They've proposed to expand that pilot to other buildings on campus, so we're going through a vetting process about that. I think the last thing for me in this, and this is going to be a continuous theme maybe to the last question, we have a lot of entities and functions within the institution that kind of spiral outside. And what we haven't done is connected them to the infrastructure of the institution. So one of the things with our Sustainability Council, how does our Sustainability Council, our CEDI network, our facilities group, Dr. Walker, our new vice president, I was just meeting earlier, and we were talking about, we've got all these committees. How do they fit into a governance model? How do they fall into a place where recommendations that come from those entities move into the formal decision-making of the institution so that we can make a conscious decision as an organization, yes, we endorse this and we want to move forward, or no, we don't. And right now, again, those processes have to be refined some. So we're looking forward to it, but that's a broad overview of some of the things I've heard.
To throw in two more quick points, there's a huge rise nationally in green-collar jobs. These are kind of jobs in the sustainability sector. So I think really thinking about our curriculum and how it prepares students for local green-collar jobs is really, really important. And then on the campus operations side, I've been talking with our Vice President, Aaron Keller. We're going to no longer do trees of friendship because trees keep dying on this campus, and that's not a really sustainable practice. So one big move for sustainability, no more trees of friendship. We've been killing trees of friendship. That's not a good thing.
Killing trees and
We're
killing
going to be doing
friendships.
cactuses of friendship from now on.
That says something about us, I'm not sure. Before we hop in this next question, I'm just curious, how many of the folks here in the audience have ever used a virtual reality headset? Okay,
Oh, wow.
a good number. So this next question, this is also arm wrestle scenario. How is the university preparing to integrate emerging technologies such as artificial intelligence and virtual reality into its curriculum? And what strategies are in place to ensure that both students and faculty are equipped to adapt to these technological changes?
I think this is a fantastic question, and I'd say we're only on the very precipice of being ready for this. And I think as a campus, the AI, when that first came out, there was a lot of like, oh shoot, what do we do? Students are going to be able to cheat, oh no. And I think we're just now really starting to embrace the, wow, this is a phenomenal tool for education. How can we use this as a tool in our classrooms? How can we think differently? I mean, part of the challenge with some of these emergent technologies is there's not a huge wealth of literature and training and resources on 20 years of best practices for using virtual reality in the classroom. So I think part of this is really building the communities where we can discover this together, providing spaces for our faculty to experiment, providing that freedom to try it out, see how it works, and using our students as partners. I think we don't think often enough about how the expertise our students bring to the classroom and having their voice in how this is helping them learn and how we can learn from them on how to use these tools in our classroom. I think we're going to need a strategy for access. If we start to make AI part of classroom assignments and stuff, how do we make sure students have access to the tools, knowledge on how to use it, training on when and where it's appropriate to use, is this allowable, is it not, how to use it appropriately, how to generate the commands. And I think as we're all learning together, I think that's going to be a kind of ongoing challenge. So I think using centers like our Center for CTLE to help us facilitate these cross-campus conversations and being okay with not being experts, I think sometimes is really hard. As a faculty member, I would know I would be panicked going into the classroom trying to teach something that I wasn't an expert in or using tools that I wasn't 100% familiar with. So I think finding ways to do that productively together is really critically important. But it really excites me too.
I'm glad you're excited, because the other thing it makes me is fear some, because it also, I think about the infrastructure that's needed to support that. So I think this is a really important part of the conversation, that how are we also, as we're going through a strategic planning process, thinking deliberately around an IT master plan to support that? What does it look like to manage data in governance, in this type of data governance within an AI environment? What does it mean to our relationship with the system and our resources that we have to allocate? So that there is this a very, very important part of the conversation, that we're looking at it holistically, clearly about the educational benefits to our students, the professional development needs of our faculty and staff, but also what are the infrastructure needs in order to support that, and that all works together as well.
Great. And then for this next part, are you going straight to the questions here? Or are we going to do a plug on the incident reporting?
Oh.
So we had a previous question that was related to student support around diversity and inclusivity. And so didn't know if you want to take this opportunity to talk a little bit about the new incident reporting webpage.
Yeah, I think all of us, and we even heard it at the top when Dean Gunn talked, Elizabeth spent some time talking about this kind of core ethos at Nevada State around diversity, equity, inclusion. making sure that we've crafted an environment where all employees and students get to show up in a way where they feel safe and valued, and in a learning environment that recognizes that justice is essential to peace, and that all of us want to work and live in that type of space. So the original question, I think, asked me a little bit about my commitments around these areas, and I think my very existence does that, but more importantly, leading an organization that already has this deep ethos is critical to how I imagine the work that I do. As such, one is that I spend a lot of time reviewing any incident report that comes into the institution. Fortunately or unfortunately, Dr. Fernandez, who's actually up north attending the Diversity Summit today, they come in, I'm next door to her, she walks in and shows me if anything comes in. So we review those, we talk about them. If we see a pattern, we escalate it and think about how that works within the institution. So it's my belief that all students and employees should feel safe, regardless of race, religion, sexuality, all the ways in which people try to divide us. I think there's something special at Nevada State. So as a result of that, we spend a lot of time also thinking about reporting. We've implemented a new Maxient, did I say that correct?
You did.
Yay, Darian. A Maxient platform that allows us to have a holistic way of collecting data around reporting and then tracking it. So if you want to go there, you can see this allows us to have an increased access to and use of forms. I know we all love forms, but they're important to track when those things come in. And then secondly, it streamlines our response because it goes directly to the people who are responsible for tracking it. And we spend time then elevating that to the spaces and places, still protecting confidentiality where necessary, but also escalating issues as they emerge. So I'm very pleased with where we are. I have not heard yet. Yes, we have concerns or issues that come up as any living entity has, where you have humans who have different experiences. But I've heard over and over again from students, when I look at our NESI data and my informal conversations, they talk very much about the environment where they feel valued, they feel safe, and they feel that this is an environment conducive to learning. So thank you for that question.
You bet. And just along that same line, we had a specific question of what are you doing to make this campus a safe place for Jewish students, staff, and faculty?
I think I do that for any student. Jewish students, Muslim students, Christian students, atheists, those who are still trying to figure it out. Those who are trying to navigate any number of identities. I believe our space is an intellectual space. It's supposed to create an environment where we get to talk about the issues that are there, that we represent and recognize that we have different views and experiences, and that they all get to coexist here. I would argue that there are a lot of external factors that are trying to separate us, and at Nevada State, we've made a choice to ensure that we create spaces and places where they are. I also recognize as a leader that I have opportunities to learn. So at any point, if there are additional things that I or the institution can and should be doing to advance equity, to advance respect, to advance safety for any student, please let me know that. I'm happy to receive that feedback, and when I have, I've worked to act on it. And in the absence of it, please make sure that we're all taking our own responsibilities in that. I receive my job as a president to do what I need to do, and I get lots of constructive feedback about how to do the work better and differently. I also think there's a human part about this, that each of us have to take responsibility for how we want our campus culture to be and how we want to experience living in it. So thank you for that.
Great, thank you. Our next question is related to pay equity. I am concerned about pay equity and increasing inequities across faculty, even within the same fields and ranks. When will Nevada State address the growing pay inequities among faculty? COLA and other percent increases only exacerbate these inequities. We need to pay equitably and have increases that match our market and the increasing cost of living in Southern Nevada. What are the plans and discussion around this issue moving forward?
So I think the last part of that question is really important. I think, is Betty in here? No. Okay. Oh, she's not?
Betty's holding down the fort.
She's doing
Okay.
6 jobs.
Oh, yeah, she's got about 5 jobs right now.
Yes, she does.
What I will ask Betty to do, because she actually had a very thoughtful response to this that is outside of my purview to have all of the information here, but she actually has laid out a thoughtful response to this. I will ask her to send it out to the college community, if not today, by tomorrow. In short, as complex as this answer or this question is, the answer is equally complex. There are system salary tables and environments that we have to respond to, rapidly changing, as we all know, this economic reality in Southern Nevada, and also simply an absence of adequate resources. So trying to balance all of those things in a thoughtful and deliberate way leads to a lot of complexity. One of the things that we have been working on for a year and have not been successful in moving it forward. We've had turnover and lots of challenges in our HR office in that space. Hopefully we'll start to see some stability as we bring on a new leader in that area in the near future. An opportunity for us to ask and answer that question. If we're going to have a market-based salary model, what does that look like? How do we address, if we can address, the types of inequities that are raised in this question? Or do we look at something as a market plus mission and try to think about what that looks like and advocating for that beyond the institution? There are parts of this that we can affect at the institution, which we've tried to. I think many of you remember when I started, there had been a compensation study that had been done. It had kind of been sitting there. I went forth and advanced that, and we made the changes there. Inevitably, I have never seen an organization I've worked in where every employee is satisfied with their salary. But there are ways in which we can communicate more effectively about it and be very clear about what we can do and what we can't do as an organization, and make the changes that we can when we have the opportunity to do so. So I will ask Betty, because I saw, as Amber mentioned, we review all the questions, make sure we have responses, and I'm sorry she's not here. There must have been something that evolved, but we'll make sure we send that out, because I know it was something that people were asking for.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
And just a reminder, if any of you in the audience have questions or online, feel free to raise your hand or submit your questions through the chat. Our next question.
Can I do know
You
there were
bet.
some students, I saw them come in, and were you going to them? I'm sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Because they were in class, and they left class, and they're going to
They
go
have a
back to
question.
class.
Okay,
But I wanted to make
beautiful.
sure they got in. I know I saw y'all come in. Go ahead.
Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
Good, you?
Good. My main question is I've been at this campus for 2 years now. I'm getting my bachelor's here.
Congratulations.
Thank you. One thing I have noticed is a lack of diversity within professors. I've had the same professors for the same 2 years now in multiple classes. There's like one professor for marketing, one professor for accounting, one professor for finance. I was just wondering, what are you going to do? Like, are you going to bring on more professors? Like, because some professors are better than others, and that's all I'm going to say. And and it's a true fact of college, you know. And one thing a student likes is having the option of like one professor compared to another professor in campus or online, teaching strategies, because they all teach differently as well. Scheduling that yeah. So we're just wondering if you're going to bring on more professors onto the campus, as it is a growing campus. And
I
yeah,
think-
that's my question.
That's a great question. And one of the things as the new provost here I'm working on is how do we decide how to grow our campus incrementally and make sure that we keep up the instructional team necessary for the different disciplines. So as our majors grow, I want to make sure we're planning in advance so that we have lined up plans to make sure we're adding professors as we need it. We're still pretty small, so we don't have the bench strength to be able to offer, multiple faculty with expertise in a particular area sometimes. So one of the things we're really hoping to do is grow our majors as we get more students in our business program. That will allow us to hire more business faculty, so that we'll eventually have some breadth there. But what we've tried to do as a campus, and I think we've been fairly successful, is making sure we have a breadth of expertise amongst our faculty so that we can offer those specialty classes. And we have a professor who can do marketing, we have a professor who can teach finance, we have a professor who can teach accounting. You may have to have that professor several times. I will tell you, if you look at my undergraduate transcript, I went to a relatively small school. I had Dr. Friedman 9 times because she taught the math classes. So my transcript is Dr. Friedman, Dr. Friedman, Dr. Friedman. And my department actually had 2 Dr. Friedman, so I had the other Dr. Friedman 4 times. So it really did not get a lot of diversity of instruction. I think the thing to do is make sure on your annual evaluations you're providing that feedback. Since you're going to have some of these professors multiple times, feel free to advocate for yourself and your education on what can they do to help you improve your learning in the classroom. So those get looked at very seriously. When faculty promotions reviews come to me, I take a look at the student feedback there. And I know your department chairs and dean are looking at that feedback to try to make sure we're helping all our faculty be as effective as possible in the classroom. And we will plan to grow as the campus grows. It may not be immediately in your time here that there'll be a new marketing professor next semester. Sorry. We'll keep adding them as we can.
I think the other thing that I would offer to you at the macro level is to vote. So I'm going to say this, and I have more and more recognized that there seems to be a misalignment within the value structure in our state. And oftentimes, our folks who are able to affect decisions don't always understand or have interest in the things that we have interest in. We need more resources to deliver on the education that we have. Nevada does not fund higher education as robustly as it can and should. So we have to have a substantive conversation around, do we have elected officials who are able to act upon the needs and interests of our state to respond to the things that you're saying? And at the same time, are we aware of what happens when we don't do that? So I say use the power that you also have, in addition to all the great suggestions that Dr. Frey said, is also thinking about macro level when you're looking at candidates who are running for legislatures, who are running for various councils, committees, or whatever the case may be. Do they have a shared belief around the value proposition of higher education and funding education and respecting the fact that institutions like ours need to grow? And unfortunately, we are not incented to grow at the level that our community and our student needs us to. We're right now just trying to keep what we have without doing the growth that's necessary to respond to the concerns that you have.
And I also want to double back and say, just to be very clear, I realize my comments taken out of context. We have a lot of fantastic professors on this campus, and just because a particular professor didn't resonate with you necessarily for your learning style, we have fantastic folks all around, and I think there is an opportunity to, take other classes, find professors that do match your learning style, and sometimes you'll have someone where it's a great growth opportunity to learn how to learn in a variety of contexts. So I wanted to make sure what the disciplines you mentioned, I was just using those as examples, and I know there are particular faculty of those. I want to make very clear that I've heard fantastic things about that department. So just wanted to clarify there. Sorry about that.
Sorry, I just wanted to clarify too. It wasn't just about the professor, the teaching strategies, it's the availability. These students are having to, personally me, I cannot graduate in time because the finance electives I need are only taught by one teacher, so that's holding me back. So I have to spend my own money staying here another semester because we don't have these type of resources. So I feel like that should be at the top of the list because not only me, I know about like 20, 30 other 40 students who aren't able to graduate in time because we only have one finance teacher, we only have one accounting teacher, we only have one marketing teacher. So it's not just about the teacher strategy or the teacher in general, it's about like the availability, yes. Yep. I feel like that's the major overall problem as well. And yeah, and then second is the teaching strategies. We need the options of others as well.
I really appreciate your comment, and I think that's something we're aware of and working on. One of the things I know we're working on as a campus is trying to make schedules more transparent and available further in advance so you can see what's going to be taught in the coming semesters, several years out, and the timing of those classes, and also trying to find ways for students to provide feedback on which classes you're waiting for and your availability for those classes. So I think we're evolving that. We recently just had a meeting a few weeks ago where we learned that we can potentially use a shopping cart strategy where we can, as part of our scheduling process, leverage some sort of shopping cart where we can start to get feedback on which things you're looking to take so we can help make sure we're optimizing schedules for what the students are looking for. Still exploring that one, but just so you know, it's a very active conversation where we're still trying to look for new tools to help make that better.
Great, thank you. Transitioning, a common theme with the future of higher education is lifelong learning. So as this concept of lifelong learning becomes increasingly important, what initiatives does the university plan to implement to support continuous education and professional development for graduates and members of the community? And bartender's choice.
Absolutely. So we have a director of workforce development who's actively working on programs to support those in our community, both our recent graduates, ongoing lifelong learners. Actually, Tom Nicholas is sitting right over there. And so he's going to be doing like a lot of road shows in the coming weeks, months, to really figure out ideas from our faculty on what do we think lifelong learners want. And he's also out in the community trying to listen to our business leaders, our local companies on what they're looking for, what they have employees who need, and trying to develop partnerships where we're able to deliver that sort of education. I think also as we're thinking about our undergraduate experience, understanding that the education we provide our students, as you heard in that futuring video at the front, is not going to serve our students for life. Many of our students are going to be in jobs that don't even exist yet, we haven't even imagined. And so how do we provide those foundational skills that are going to translate beyond one particular profession into providing them the learning skills, going to let them be able to adapt and learn new programs. Some of you may have heard this anecdote before. If you have, I'm sorry. My favoriteest meeting of all time was a Senate meeting that I was dreading. I went into a Senate meeting, and the meeting was to talk about what the maximum amount of online classes that students should be allowed to take at the university. And I had my arguments ready, went into that meeting. By the end of our conversation, they had realized that online learning is actually a skill set. Learning to learn online and how you obtain information independently in that sort of asynchronous online environment can be really, really helpful for students. And by the end of that meeting, we were talking about, should we have a minimum number of online courses that a student should take? Because maybe every student should learn how to learn in an online environment a little bit, because they might have to retrain in the future, teach themselves new skills. And so that was one of my most enjoyable meetings that I dreaded going into, but really that acknowledgement that our students are going to be lifelong learners and teaching them not just particular fact skills right now, but how they're going to be able to learn, retrain, learn new things in the future.
And related to that, I think we have to cultivate that same type of awareness for employees within our organization, faculty, staff, everyone within that. I have a strong belief that every employee should be able to have a learning plan that they are working through each year that helps them decide, this is what I want to work on, here's how I'm going to do that. And a lot of us do that as a part of our professional development strategies and your plan for the year. But do we recognize the life cycle of an employee within the institution? As a president, am I being aligned to say, Darian, here are the 3 or 4 skills that I'm going to work on this year? How does that represent in a professional development plan? Things that we may offer in-house versus things that we'll have outside. How are we meeting your social emotional needs and development as an employee? Our most valuable asset at Nevada State University are the people who work here. So we have to be continuously in an effort of thinking about not only the compensation question that was there, but the engagement question, and that we're prepared to meet our students where they are when they show up here at our institution. Are we prepared to move them into the careers that exist and don't even exist right now? Those of us who are fearful of putting a little headset on, how do we get over that? That's me, I'm sorry. I have a whole theory about my claustrophobia and the headset. So there's a whole thing about this, our readiness to be ready for how our students are going to show up and to prepare them for those types of employment that exist in lifelong learning. So I think it's a very complex issue that we have to spend very focused energy around as an institution.
Thank you. There are games where you can just accidentally fall into caves and deal with your claustrophobia, by the way.
Or elevators, Amber?
My 12-year-old thinks it's really hilarious.
Yeah.
These things happen. And elevators. We're not talking about that. So this will be our last question. In similar to different comments here, but in the light of evolving job markets, what measures is the university taking to align its programs and courses with the future skill requirements of various industries, ensuring that graduates are not only employable, but also poised to excel in their respective field?
I think that's a great question, and I will say I think our campus is really lucky to have 3 really strong deans of our school who take this mission really seriously. Our School of Nursing has fantastic relationships with the local hospitals, healthcare industries, and are really up to date on what is it that people are doing in the field, how are they preparing those students, how are they getting hands-on experience. Similarly, our School of Education has fantastic relationships with CCSD and understanding what their students are doing and once they go out into the classroom. Just earlier this week, we had a presentation from one of our faculty, Dr. Amanda Carter, who on her sabbatical was working on the NEST program, which was mentoring our new teachers as they're going out into the classroom to make sure that they're successful in their new careers as teachers. Our School of LASB is forming an advisory council board, advisory council where they're bringing in leaders from the business communities in the disciplines of their school to help advise on the curriculum, advise on opportunities for students, making sure that our educational experiences are relevant for the Nevada business landscape. So I think we have 3 deans who are very attentive to this and doing a fantastic job trying to stay relevant. And then I think our campus is also really good at building our external relations through the work the Vice President Keller is doing on keeping a pulse on our membership in the Henderson Chamber of Commerce, our Latin Chamber, all sorts of connections there so that we're really trying to stay attuned to how our education aligns with the needs of the region.
And I think the other thing that I'll just add to that is that we're also, I think as an institution, helping the region develop a broader understanding around the necessary ecosystem for this. There has not been, I think, a clear appreciation for the value that we play as a higher education sector in building that pipeline and being very robust in the communication to do that. And I will tell you, we've introduced some conversations and amplified them in ways that I can say 2 or 3 years ago they weren't even happening. Now people are starting to do that. In fact, LVGA just put together for the first time ever a talent pipeline group that's actually looking at the pipeline K-20 in our region. That, I think, can be a game changer once we get to work.
Could you tell everybody what LVGEA is? Because they may not know. I just learned myself.
My bad. Las Vegas Global Economic Alliance, and it is the regional economic workforce development entity for our area. What I think is really important about that, they are, I guess, a quasi-governmental entity whose responsibilities are to drive economic development in our area. So we've helped them understand thoughtfully that workforce development is economic development. You don't get to do one without the other. And that, I think, is hopefully changing the game in terms of conversations in our region.
Great, thank you. Madam President, Madam Provost, always a pleasure spending time with you in this capacity. And now Vice President Erin Keller of Advancement and Marketing to bring us home and land the plane on time.
Oh, okay. Land the plane on time, which means 3 minutes. First off, I was just thinking about this. This is my 5th institution that I've worked. This has never happened. These town halls don't happen at other institutions. So thank you all for participating, for coming, for listening. Know that this is unique and special that you get this access and questioning to your leaders. It doesn't happen in other institutions, so know that. So thank you both for allowing us to have that space. Really quick, I was supposed to do 30 seconds on what advancement does for the future and what we're going to do. We're going to take all the good stuff that we just talked about, promote it out to the community and beyond, and the state and the region and the country and the world if we have our way, and be able to share the good work that we do here and hopefully result in a lot of wonderful opportunities, whether that's recruitment of students through what we do in marketing, whether it's making sure our alumni are employed and here and happy, and also raising money for scholarships for students and so on. I have a lot of announcements that I think we're getting ready to go, so thank you for your patience as we go through these. Number one, we are going to participate in the Great Colleges to Work For program, and this is launching a survey that is designed to recognize institutions that have built great workplaces. So regardless of not whether we're recognized, the data we receive will be really helpful as we strive to be an employer of choice. So the vast majority of us are going to get a survey in our inbox from Great Colleges to Work. The participation is voluntary, it's confidential. Hope that you get that information when it comes to you. Looks like it's gonna hit starting March 4th. The vast majority of us are going to get it if you're an employee with Nevada State. Speaking of surveys, survey number 2. On February 1st, in your inbox, you received a survey for the Community Engagement Survey. Some of this might look familiar to you because we've done this in the past for our accreditation, but community relations as a part of advancement is working really hard to better understand how we give out to our local community, how our local community gives back to us, how we can be better partners in that community. So hope that you will fill that out. We even got the great easy QR code for you to just click and get it done. And there's prizes. So always good to do that. I'll leave that one up for a second. Oh, okay. Is that one next? I can do that one next. Okay. There were some questions about the campus commuter. We wanted to explain a little bit more of what this is. This is a really, really cool partnership that we have with CSN. Students can get transported from each of the CSN campuses to our campus and back. It's 100% funded by grant funding, so neither one of us institutions have been paying. It's been grant funding, which is great, and it's going to run through the end of this calendar year. There is an app. The app is called Trip Shot, and what it does is you can track where the commuter is in real time. So as a student, if you're wanting to, or as an employee, you want to park someplace else and ride, which I don't know about you, but I'd love to be able to do that someday where I could just sit and kind of meditate before I walked into campus. Wouldn't that be great? That gives you the opportunity. You can see where the commuter is at any given time, know when to hop on and which way it's going. What's next? Aha. So you might remember a while back we did a Spartan race on campus. Spartan race is for those people who love to do those crazy obstacle courses, and apparently our land is really good for that. So we're doing it again March 16th and 17th. Notice that this is your announcement. It's right at the end of CCSD spring break. I think it's our spring break too, right? Yeah. Okay. So also there's volunteer opportunities to participate. If you volunteer, you can also get a free race ticket. So it might be appealing. You can sign up. There's also another QR code. If you're interested, just register as soon as possible so we know. But this is a really cool opportunity. This really helps us introduce the Nevada State University brand to people who may not know. People travel from all over the world to come to these races. So it's a really cool way to build our brand. One that's not on the list that I'll happily share really quick, coming soon to your inbox is the nomination forms for faculty and staff awards. So please keep an eye out for that. It's coming soon. And I believe that's it. I'm looking at Nick. Where's Nick? Is he back there? Am I good? Did I get all of them? Yes, okay. Thank you all so much for coming. Right on time. Thank you all for coming. Appreciate you being here.